Hello, 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 and welcome to another episode of Getting Unstuck with Misfits Unplugged, where we're helping highly motivated hustlers achieve success and overcome career hurdles. We're two minority
Mhm.
women with a combination of street smarts and corporate America, bringing simplified business concepts to everyone.
And if you're feeling stuck in your career and having a little bit of trouble trying to figure out what your next step should be, you want to listen to Misfits Unplugged because we're going to be giving you little nuggets to help you get unstuck on the way.
I'm Isabel, and that's Brandy. Say hi, Brandy.
Hi, Isabel.
Guess that works. She doesn't follow direction, but it works. So today's episode, we're going to be focusing on time management remedy for procrastination. We're going to be focusing on the good, bad, and ugly. So, how is it going to impact your career to be a procrastinator and not meet those deadlines? We're going to share some stories of, as always, where we succeeded and some of our failures and learning opportunities. And last but not least, we're going to put full circle and tell you how being an effective time manager will impact you in your next step of your career. So with
Mhm.
that, Brandy, let's jump on in. So
Let's do it.
let's do it. So why don't we talk about what time management means to you and how have you overcome like your learning obstacles that you've had throughout your career? Because we didn't, come out into newbie employees or managers understanding time management. So how did you build those skill
Mm.
sets?
Well, so I think honestly, I think I got to kind of take it back to my childhood. Just because I had the kind of parents that, wanted chores done a certain way, wanted things done on time, and, they weren't it wasn't like a prison, but, you didn't want the consequence of, them coming home from work and things not being done. The work ethic and the notion that things need to be done on time, in general has sort of just kind of come natural to me. And then fast forward, I get a little bit older. Now, mind you, I come out of the music industry where, time management is superly important because when you're paying for studio or when the record companies are paying for studio, you are in charge of that time and they dock you off of your pay. They dock you off of your next budget if you're not getting things done in a short period of time or on a schedule that makes sense for them. So I think just me understanding the consequence of things not getting done or maybe having really hard consequences early on for not getting things done on a pretty strict time frame kind of put that little clock inside of me that makes me want to get kind of things done before the time runs out.
I think
That's
that's
where mine
really
comes
funny.
from.
I say that all the time. Like when you bill someone for something and you have to pay out of pocket, then it hits you and you're like,
Hmm.
okay, I need to change my tune here. Because like when you're a kid and you go to school, you don't want to get up, you don't want to do anything. But wait until you get
Hmm.
that college first bill, and then you're like, oh man, I'm really gonna focus because now I'm paying for
Hmm.
this. So
Hmm.
I laugh when I hear you say that because that's the shift when people are starting to adult. They
Yeah.
get the bill, they're like, oh, I
I
need to
mean,
start focusing on this.
and then listen, and so now we're in finance, I've been in underwriting for a very long time. I mean, and sometimes getting cases done is literally a life or death situation, right?
Literally.
So you're always dealing with deadlines there. Um, so, I just think for whatever the reason, my life trajectory has put me in situations, circumstances where time management was like uberly important. So
Yeah,
where'd
so I
yours come
agree with
from?
you. I think that it's the combination of like nature versus nurture, like how we
Mhm,
become people and how we do things. So,
mhm,
one of the things that was like in me was my like how neurotic I was to be on time to places and like, just keeping myself on a schedule. Like that was always something that just came natural to me, trying to stay organized. Like I was the person who was when I was brand new and I remember my like first job, I didn't know how to use a fax machine and
mhm,
silly things like that. But so the way that people trained me, I wrote things down like in detail. So if I can go back, I don't need anyone's help. I'm going to follow my instructions and I'm going to master it. So that was
mhm,
my same approach with time management. If I was given a deadline and I missed it, I felt like a failure. So,
mm,
not that you are a failure, but I have to take a step back and say, what do I need to change? Because why didn't I get to that deadline? Why didn't I
mhm,
reach it? And sometimes
mhm,
you'll see that, you start drifting off and you start focusing on something else, and maybe you have more interest in doing that, so you do that first, but that didn't
Mm-hmm.
get done.
Yeah.
So you need to put at the forefront of your mind and in your priority list what has
Mm-hmm.
a deadline associated with it. And then I went back and I started asking more questions too to better organize myself. If I had a list of 10 things and I didn't know what was a priority or how to prioritize, because depending on where you are in your career, you may not be able to prioritize or the decision maker of what is the priority. So I
Mm-hmm.
would ask, when do you need XYZ by? When is your meeting for me to prep this for? Or how urgent is this? Can I do this project over a period of time? And the more questions I asked, it put me in a better place to organize myself. And then it also showed people what I had on my plate. And it showed them
Yeah.
the ability to time manage. I was asking questions, I was engaging. And then I started hitting the time frames on early on in my career, probably the first, once you build the confidence to ask the question,
Mm-hmm.
because that also is take a leap, ask the questions, because no one thinks that you know everything. And
Mm-hmm.
if you also prioritize something on your own that you think might be, and then when you come back and you ask your supervisor, your manager, whomever you report into, or you collaborate with, maybe it's a peer, that what
Mm-hmm.
you focus on wasn't the priority, and what you put off was the priority because they had a
Yeah.
deadline that maybe they didn't communicate to you. So even where I am today, I always ask folks if I don't have a time frame associated with it, just to put myself at ease and be able to pivot back and forth on what I'm working on, because you never know when
Mm-hmm.
you're going to have a fire, when you have other things to focus on. So understanding like these 3 things absolutely have to get done, these 15 things I can push off. So early on,
Mm-hmm.
that was my strategy. It was more about communication and understanding.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's
Now
good. And
procrastination is a whole nother
I
thing.
think that those are really good nuggets, particularly for people who may be early in their career. Because I heard you hit on two things as being organized. I mean, organization is like, I want to say, the foundation of balancing any kind of procrastination that you got going on. And just getting assertive, right? So like if you're not sure and you have competing deadlines on things. I know early on in my career, um, I'm the kind of person that would stay late and do things, and overcompensate with time because I had a lot of competing situations that needed to be taken care of. And it wasn't until I think, started putting timetables to things for myself, like really figuring out how long does it really, really take me to do things, for me to start putting them into perspective. So when I start getting them, for instance, I know how long it's going to take me to take an application. I know how long it's going to take me to get that thing in the system. And so I'm able to then say, well, if I have 10 cases, it's going to take me until X, Y, and Z to get this done. So if I'm getting, projects and things piled on top of me, being assertive and being able to go to your supervisor and say, listen, I have these 10 things that I'm doing, and I know that these projects are really important too. I need some direction on which one of these projects is the priority. So I think that's a good nugget to give people.
Yeah, I like that you mentioned the staying late part for time management, because earlier on, and not even just earlier on, this is like 2 years ago, and
Mhm.
I consistently worked late when we worked together or we moved on in our careers. Um, we looked at success, management, leadership as working late. You're the first person in the office, you're the last person out, you're not a
Mhm.
9 to 5 mentality. And I feel like that's a learning opportunity as well to highlight, because we're poor at time managing and
Yeah.
respecting our own time or valuing our own time. And I think that's a really,
Mhm.
really important point to mention, because a lot of folks have that mentality. You know
Yeah.
what? I can't get this done during my 9 to 5. I'll work late. But that's not necessarily the right mentality to have,
Yeah.
because it should be work-life balance.
Mhm.
One. And number two is you need to speak to your employer and make sure that you're evaluating your time. Now, if there's time management issues, then you should, focus on that. But if you truly are over capacity and it becomes a
Mhm.
capacity issue, then you should be having a conversation with, we talk about problem and solution, present
Mhm.
the problem. You and I like quantifying information. So I would put together a spreadsheet that says, here's everything I'm focusing on. Here's the time that I'm focusing on it. This is translating to 60, 70 hours a week, and show them over a period of time and say, this requires a part time person.
Mm-hmm.
And if we tack on these extra things, now we need a full-time person. And I would
Yeah.
quantify that and show it to them and validate needing additional resources and how that translates to my capacity and maybe expansion and creating
Sure.
opportunities, which is what we talked about in the last episode when we
Mm-hmm.
talked about
Mm-hmm.
pivoting. So
Mm-hmm.
I just want to mention that because I feel like that was really important from a time management perspective because we were burning ourselves out. And even though we were building the credibility, we were building that business clout, we climbed the corporate ladder at what
Yeah.
expense, which is our time, which is
Yeah.
very valuable and short.
Mm-hmm.
I would
Mm-hmm.
just mention that that's a learning opportunity. So if you're that person listening to us right now and you drive home at 8 o'clock at night because you work
Yeah.
overtime, then this
Yeah.
is a wake up call that you need to kind of reevaluate what you have going on. And it could be a good thing. Maybe you like
Mm-hmm.
working late, so go for it. But just be
Mm-hmm.
mindful that it shouldn't be every day. It shouldn't be that folks have an expectation that you're working
Mm-hmm.
late as well.
Mm-hmm.
That happened to
Mm-hmm.
us.
Mm-hmm.
We responded on our personal devices. We worked late, so it became an expectation that we were
Mm-hmm.
replying to emails at 8:30, 9 o'clock at night. And then when we did it, it was like, oh, we haven't heard from you on this. Why are you delaying it? Where is it? And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
I sent this at
Mm-hmm.
9 o'clock yesterday.
Yeah. I mean, listen, I would say, particularly if you're early in your career, um, one of the things that I used to do was to really get creative around should what I'm doing still be done the same way. So sometimes we learn processes from other people or we're indoctrinated into whatever way the company that we work for has been doing it for however many years, and I've always been the kind of person to come and blow processes up. Right, so I was the kid that, when the VCR wasn't working, and I'm telling my age now, like I would literally take it apart one by one and put it all back together to figure out, you know, what was happening with it. And I tend to be that way with processes. So, there's only so many times that I'm going to go through a process and feel like I'm hitting nicks and bumps before I'm like, wait a minute, let me just start from fresh. What should be the actual outcome? And is this the only way to it? The ability to, stop and ask questions or ask myself questions about processes and how things should be done, as a good way to cut down some of the time that it spends to do certain processes and things. And then you kind of become the person that, if you do that enough, then you become the person that people come to want to fix processes. I mean, and that's kind of what you want to do,
Yeah.
long term, if you're trying to go up the corporate ladder.
Yeah, I definitely think that when I hear this is the way that we've always done it, I'm just like, it appalls me. No.
Yeah.
But no, you reach a point when you're pivoting out into different roles or you're going to
Hmm.
different departments or different organizations at some point or another, someone will say it or you will observe it. Like when you ask questions about why are you doing it this way, and you hear that's the way I was trained or that's the way we've always done it. So that's an
Hmm.
opportunity for you to go in and shake things up, bring a new perspective. So just to bring us back full circle about time management and remedying procrastination, we've talked
Hmm.
about time management and creating opportunities, but the time management piece of it is really what will prevent you. So if you are a bona fide procrastinator or you have procrastinated at some point with something, it's typically because you haven't time managed correctly. So you
Hmm.
push off the thing you don't want to do. Either the person you're working with is annoying, the progress is annoying, you just don't want to do it,
Hmm.
it's a problem. Many times over again, you overthink it and push it and push it and push it, and then you never get to it, whether it is
Hmm.
anything in your life,
Hmm.
procrastination can apply to.
Hmm.
But if you put the thing that you're putting off forefront of your mind, then you'll get to it much, much faster.
Yeah.
So allotting time and staying organized, then you'll get that thing off of your plate. So just
Hmm.
making sure that, there's so many different tools and technology and strategy, and we're putting it all together for you,
Yeah.
but there's things that are already existing that you can use, like we chat about the reminders on your cell phone, your calendar on
Hmm.
your cell phone, something so simple, but put it
Hmm.
in there to remind you whether you're using it at work or personal. I use my
Hmm.
Outlook to remind myself and block myself off for things. And if I don't do it, I'll forget, because you're
Yeah.
not going to get to this, but you're not organized. You don't know what's on your plate. So I put blocks on my Outlook calendar that say, okay, you have all your meetings, they're in one color. Then I put blocks throughout the day of what I'm going to focus on. And all of my project management is a different color. So they're
Mhm.
blue. So I see them bright and I say, okay, I'm going to focus on this today. So I know for the next hour and a half, I'm going to specifically focus on, let's say, an initiative or a project. And I will not look at emails. I'll turn off my Teams. I'm muting my cell phone
Mhm.
because when you lose focus, it takes you a long time to get that focus back. So I
Mhm.
try to stay 100% focused on what I've already, allotted for myself to focus on.
Mhm.
And without that, I won't get to it. So
Mhm.
even if it's something like responding to someone who's pissed you off. So a lot, 15 minutes, I'm going to respond to this person and get to that email, but I'm strategic with the time. Maybe I need to cool off from that
Mhm.
email that was just annoying. I say annoying, but we work with,
Mhm.
a sales environment. So sometimes there's a lot of urgency and, you don't want to be responsive. You want to be the professional. So you want to take a step back before you respond to someone's emotional response to something.
Yeah.
So that's what I do to not procrastinate on responding to something that is time sensitive. It's important for our bottom line. But if I put it in there, then I allow myself some time to focus on that. So how
Mhm.
does your time management impact or improve your procrastination?
Well, so I think my strategy in general is, in what I've learned over the years, and it took me some time to get there, is learn my high time. And I think everybody has it, right? So some people are, people who can dig in first thing in the morning. They like getting up at 6, 7 o'clock in the morning, and their high time is in the morning when there's, no distractions. They're just fresher at that particular time. My high time tends to be like late morning. So I need a little bit of time to rev up. I need a couple of cups of coffee. I probably prioritize my day the day before because I just have a lot of rollover kind of thing. But I had a professor tell me one time in college, particularly when I was going for my master's, and it was important in going for my master's because when you're going for those higher degrees, it's not like going to class and you're being tested on something every single week. Like it's literally like that. Like to me, that's the biggest test of time management, so to speak, because you just kind of have to learn concepts for the entire time and write papers about it and all that good stuff. And so a good professor told me one time, don't think about, the project at hand. Think about, and don't worry that you're not doing something every single day towards it. Everybody has a high time. So some people are crashers, meaning that they'll go up until a few days before the deadline and just, cram everything in the last, 3 days before. And I tend to be that kind of person. But some people need a more systematic, way of doing things. So I figure, finding my high time and really going with the flow of that helps me. And then be prioritization. So I like to look at what's on my plate and look at what are my high impact items, because when you have this whole list of things that you have to do, so I mean sometimes I have 30, 40 things on my, tablet on a day-to-day basis. And I have this little system where, and I don't write them out in any particular order. I write them as the project or case or whatever comes to me. And I have this bubble system, 1 to 5, like 5 being the highest priority and 1 being a really low priority. And I literally go down every single thing and write 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 next to it. And I highlight everything that's a 5 for me. And those are the tasks that I try during my high time to tackle, because those are the things that's going to take the most concentration. They're usually the more complex things that require me to, like Isabel said, turn off the notifications for a minute, black out my Outlook and all that good stuff. So I think that those two things help me tremendously, just prioritizing my high impact things that need to get done, and focusing on my high time, like organizing my day around my highest level of energy and concentration.
Yeah. So for me, exactly what you're saying. Like there's different points of the day. You never know how you're going to wake up. Monday I might be super energetic. Tuesday I'm low energy. So I try to keep myself organized because you don't know what's coming to you that day. You might have a
Mm-hmm.
full day and say, I'm going to accomplish a bunch of things. And then you get involved
Fires.
in other things and something might pull your attention. It might be a family emergency. You never know what is going
Mm-hmm.
to happen. So I try to spread things out exactly how you mentioned. So, day to day, I manage a to-do list that works off of tasks that I have allotted. I'll say, okay, here's everything I want to focus on the Tuesday. When I go into my system, those Tuesday items will pop up automatically. So
Mm-hmm.
every day I have like tasks. So depending on what systems the person that's listening to us is using,
Mm-hmm.
whatever you use that shows you your day-to-day workload, that's what we're referring to. And what I typically will do is it would mirror what I have allotted to myself on the calendar. Now, if there's things that like rolled over from the day before, then maybe I need to now reassess and reevaluate what I have on my plate, because time management is really the most important part of the
Mm-hmm.
execution
Mm-hmm.
of everyone's role, because in some way, shape, or form, you have to meet a deadline, you have to do something, you have to reply to someone, you have to update someone.
Mm-hmm.
And, being on the receiving side of not knowing what's
Mm-hmm.
happening, not receiving those updates, it creates tension. And if I'm developing someone, then now it's an item we need to talk about that you need development in. So just make sure you're focusing on time management and all the tips that we just provided you, which will be creating some things and helping you with in the long run. So hopefully you can implement them and then share with us that you have
Mm-hmm.
effective at time managing and less about the procrastination.
Mm-hmm.
You feel procrastination coming in, you have to set up everything that we've talked to you about: organizing your emails, organizing your calendar, your to-do list, reprioritizing or refocusing. And if you see something keeps falling to the bottom of the list, probably should put it at the top of your list to get it out of the way.
Mm-hmm.
Or ask who you're reporting into or who's giving you the assignment and reprioritize, and then set a solid date for yourself to focus on it. Don't just keep moving it to the next day, moving it to the next day, because then it's not
Mm-hmm.
going to get done. And it's going to be one of those things that just keeps lingering. So focus and stay organized.
Mm-hmm. This might be hard for somebody who's like super procrastinator, but I think that everybody should have their own SLAs, right? So a service level agreement for yourself. There's that internal urgency for certain things that even if somebody's not telling you, we're all adults. Like no employer wants, to have to stand over your shoulder to make sure that you're getting things done, right? So to a certain extent, we all kind of have that freedom, but I think that that's where the integrity piece comes into play. Because, for instance, my CEO, my boss doesn't have to tell me that it's probably unreasonable for me to wait to get back to a client after 3 days, right? So my personal SLA for myself is if a client reaches out to me and has a question, I get back to them before end of day, even if it's just an email that I got your question, I'm working on it, even if I don't have the answer. So just building in your own SLAs that keep you sort of, tied to your own integrity of when is a good time to get back on things, even the smallest things works.
And then you can communicate that outward. So depending on
Mhm.
what you do in your role, having those posted SLAs will be able to manage priorities and expectations of folks. Because if people are reaching out to you for updates, Brandy specifically, you're working with clients. In our
Mhm.
side, in my specific role, we're working with the advisors who service the clients. So with
Mhm.
the advisors, we need to manage their expectations and turnaround times and process. So we have SLAs, but we hold folks accountable. The same at the carrier levels, or when you
Mhm.
have to follow up with someone, and you say, "Hey, you were supposed to get back to me on Wednesday, and you haven't received any updates by Wednesday. So now it's time for you to follow up or escalate, or so on and so forth." So I think SLAs are really good for your own um edification, but also to keep people.
Accountable.
Yeah, I think it's also about keeping people accountable and keeping them you managing their expectations. So with that said, I think that all of this ties together to next episode, where we're going to be focusing on the balance and strategy of communication. So this
Mhm.
episode we focused on time management, becoming effective at time management and becoming less of a procrastinator. Whereas next time we're going to help you with that communication so you can build on your time management skills and becoming more of an effective leader.
Yeah, don't hold off for tomorrow what can be done today.
Yes, I love that. So, as
Mhm.
always, thank you so much for joining us. We are excited to continue to build this community of misfits with you. If you are new, please make sure that you subscribe. You go on to misfitsunplugged.com, sign up for a newsletter. We are sending monthly updates along with periodic exclusive content and tips and tricks to help you continue to build those skill sets, move the needle in your career, reach epic milestones, and all the good stuff in between. And
Mhm.
we are dropping knowledge bombs on a daily basis on Misfits Unplugged on Instagram. And where we go live, we share some more information. We are engaging. So we are not untouchable. Go in there, reach out to us. We're happy to work with you. And as always, don't keep us a secret. Share us. Share with anyone that you think can find value in all of the efforts that we're putting in to help people and pay it forward to move along in their careers.
I love it.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye,
Bye.
Misfits.